Good evening. I'm RZ from the 107th Joint Aviation Squadron, and this video is going to be about the overhead brake. As with our other Training on Tuesday video, this is a recorded presentation from our session that took place on June 1st, 2021. If you'd like more information on Training on Tuesday, check our Discord listed in the description for details. This video will show you how to execute the overhead brake in a safe, efficient, and effective manner. Here with us today is Butterfly, who's letting us in on all the details.
All right, let's get this show on the road. Morning, everyone. I'm Butterfly. Today I'm going to be teaching you about the overhead brake. Objectives for today, we're going to list the position/parts of the overhead, explain the correct radio procedures, and finally we're going to demonstrate the overhead as described in this lesson. Anyone got any reasons we may want to learn this?
It's cool.
It is very cool. Anyone else? This will be relatively interactive.
You want a way to get back to base quickly and land quickly but safely.
Yep, expediting landings. Anyone else?
Standardization might be something good. A simple procedure for all approaches.
Yep, those all work. And others just Air Forces do it and we're trying to be cool, so we're going to copy what the Air Forces do. Or do we disagree with that statement? Nope, incredible. All right, let's just check and see what people have done before. Has anyone here ever done an overhead before?
Yeah.
That's at least one person. Wonderful. Anyone know any numbers for an overhead?
It depends.
It does indeed. What are the numbers that you use, Petey?
I use 1500 AGL for Air Force kind of style.
Yep. Anyone know any other fun numbers for starting off? Doesn't particularly matter if it's Air Force, Navy, Marines, helicopters. I'd be impressed if they can do a brake. Cool. And is anyone familiar with comms for the overhead, both controlled and uncontrolled?
Not fully.
Not fully? That's a good thing we're doing this, isn't it?
Mhm.
All right. So the overhead pattern. I'll just give you guys a quick thing about me. Most of you guys will already know this, but this is also for the viewing audience. I work next to an Air Force base, so I get to watch F-35s do brakes all day long. It's very cool, and I'm going slowly deaf, but that's all right. I also can read, and I've been doing brakes for a while now, so I know how it's done. All right. The overhead brake is also known as the initial and pitch, run and brake, the overhead, or just a brake. So here's the basic look at what the initial and pitch is. I stopped breaking it. It's called the initial and pitch because I stole this from an Australian Air Force document, and we call it the initial and pitch. If you want to find it, it's down here. All right. So before you even get into the pattern area, we've got to actually start talking to people. So starting off, we're going to use Sochi as our controlling field, and we're going to use tripod 1 as the call sign for us. All right. So things in semi-italics, actually. If it's got the colon in front of it, that's the controller speaking or whatever. If it's got a name in front of it, that's whoever. All right, so Sochi approach will contact tripod. So tripod 1 cleared via right initial, runway 06 at 10 TACAN, contact tower stud free. Tripod's going to reply, cleared visual approach right initial at 10 TACAN, that should be stud free, tripod 1-1. So breaking that down into English, Most airfields in DCS are going to have a TACAN. So what the approach controller is saying is tripod is cleared for a right initial, which looking at this is one of these. So they're going to come in more or less from the right relative to the initial point. And when they are 10 miles away from the TACAN station, they're going to contact the tower. Tower in this case is on stud free. Stud free just means the third preset for the radio. Sometimes aircraft won't have these, and if you don't, just ask what's stud free. The controllers are going to be relatively chill about that. And then tripod 1-1's just saying, yeah, I'm cleared, going to do a right initial, and at 10 NTAC, I'm going to go stud free if it gets to comms properly. All right. The pattern. First bit is just this little square here, which is all of the initials. So the initial is a 0.7 miles from the runway threshold and can either be left, right, or straight in. Path will report this when contacting ATC. So tripod 1, once again, is us. So tower tripod 1 initial, which means they are there. But in this case, they're probably going to be further back, about 7 miles. Moving on down. Parts are going to fly down the dead side of the runway, which is the side that is not active for traffic. So if we're doing left traffic, they'll be on the right. If we're doing right traffic, they'll be on the left. 1 second.
We ask question in the middle, or are we just waiting?
Certainly can. Yep. There you can ask a question.
Is that 7 miles from Taken? Is that 7 miles from the threshold? What's
7
what's
from
the
the
what's the
threshold.
lateral separation then? Or is it just like you're actually lining all this up? It's just the diagram itself has like lateral separation.
So the initial is 7 miles from the threshold,
Mhm.
offset slightly towards the dead side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what's the offset scale there? Is it
Um,
like feet, half a mile? Like what's the?
about case 1 separation style.
Okay, so a couple 100 feet or something.
Yeah, a couple of 100 feet, just so that when you're coming up, you can see the
Mhm.
runway clearly, and you're going parallel to it. So if you look down, you'll be able to see it, more
Okay.
or less. Yep. Any further questions? Because I know that I've been zooming through this, for lack of a better term. Are we all comfortable so far? Once, twice. Yeah, I heard sounds. Sweet. All right, pattern part 2. So the flight is going to continue down the, this will be the upwind leg, or the dead side, depending on what we're going to call it. But the flight lead's going to break first at any point along the runway, as long as it is safe to do so. So in this case, flight lead's going to break about 3/4 of the way down. And the remaining elements are going to continue flying along. And at a brief time, they're going to break after the lead. 4 seconds is a pretty good reference number. I know that's what the Air Force uses for all this fun stuff. Although it's not necessary, the flight may voice pitching to indicate that they are turning across the runway to establish on the downwind. Questions on that? Awesome. All right, part 3 of the pattern.
Yeah, Butterfly, I do have a question. Sorry.
Yep.
So what kind of G do you want to pull when you go into the break?
So it is aircraft dependent. But for this example, and later on, we're going to be looking for about a mile and a bit for the downwind separation. So for the Hornet, we know that's going to be 1% of the current airspeed. I don't know about other aircraft just because I'm not proficient in them. So I'm sure we can get. See, we've got. Let's pick on PD. Petey, what type of G/unit of measurement would you be referencing to get the proper downwind spacing?
So to enter the downwind,
After you brake, you're doing your turn across. What type of number would you be looking at for that? Would it be G, alpha, seconds, bank angle?
yeah, usually
Anything
I'm
weird?
looking at. So I'm thinking of the Viper now, probably about 3 Gs through that to bleed the speed. So constant G, losing speed.
So it'll be aircraft dependent is more than likely going to be the answer.
Yeah, for the Viper, it's like 70-degree turn, 3 Gs till you're on speed, 250 knots on the downwind.
So on the downwind, this is where things get a little bit weird. Oh, more people.
Hello. Oh.
Okay, so on the downwind, for the RAF, you're going to want to be dirtying up here. However, they don't. Jesus, everyone's here. So they will only start dropping gear and flaps once they're established on the downwind. They're not going to deploy it during the turn, like during the brake. They're going to continue flying on the downwind with the gear down. And once they get to the base leg, which is going to be position 6, they're going to report tripod 1-1 base 3 grains. And then tower's going to reply tripod 1, runway 06 clear to land, check wheels. Once again, that's just making sure that the fact that it's got 3 grains doesn't always mean that. It could just be force of habit to say it. Tripod 1-1's then going to reply runway 06 clear to land, tripod 1-1. Okay, so something about this, when you're braking in a formation, once, so say how tripod 1 is being cleared to land, not 1-1, 1-2, 1-7, anything like that. Tower is actually clearing the entire formation to land. And also, pardon me, the tripod flight is going to report base 3 greens when they are at that point. Any questions on that? Once, twice. All right. This is the numbers for an overhead brake, or the initial and pitch for the Royal Australian Air Force and the Hornet numbers specifically. As I'm sure not everyone here flies the Hornet or is Aussie, expect these to change depending on your specific aircraft. All right. So starting off, at the initial, you're going to want to be doing 350 knots at 1,500 feet. Position 3, which is the first brake, level brake 1% of the airspeed. Starting to on speed AOA at 1,500. For the Aussies, we keep the same altitude throughout the entire thing until we get to base. Report 3 greens on the downwind. Alright, position 6, which is base. Turn towards the runway. 8-degree descent path. So for the Hornets, that's velocity vector on, my bad, wing level on the horizon, velocity vector 8 degrees down. Intercept the glide slope whenever you are in the correct position to do so. And fly, land normally. Questions on that, or anything anyone wants to say about specific jets that this will absolutely destroy them for?
That aligns with the 16.
Awesome.
What?
I believe
1,500 feet, 7-degree descent path.
Yeah, usually the 16's at 300 knots, I think. But
Yeah, that's the only difference.
On the downwards, F-16, I
And-
believe, is supposed to be 200 to 220.
And you fly over the runway, not offsetting. So, because that's how
Yeah.
you calculated your 3G turn.
the joys of differential aircraft. All right. Here's the fun bit. pattern directions. So as we can see here, we've got Sakumi. Some of you guys may have seen these charts before. These are the default ones. If we want the special 107th ones, you guys are going to need to tag recall relentlessly. And then he's going to get pissed at me, and we may get them eventually. But we've got the CRP, which is the compulsory reporting point. So let's go runway 11, for example. We can see that you start for the left initial up at the town of Sakumi. Fly this heading, which is 131, till you get to the initial, which is, as you know, 7 miles from the end of the runway. Fly in, brake, do the landing stuff. Other way around, fly in, brake, do the landing stuff. Now, here's where things get a little bit weird. Who here has ever flown on a TNT before? Yep. Who here has ever done a brake in a TNT before at a field, such as Sochi?
I have.
I have.
Yee.
Do we believe this chart to be accurate for Sochi during a TNT?
No.
But it's Kumi, so no.
Oh, we switched to a Sochi chart.
Should be a left traffic.
Should be depending on TNT. However, Mother Russia in their infinite wisdom has decided it will be right brakes. This is why we're going to tag recall. So we've got left brake in accordance with pitches. So yeah, Sochi, and we're going to be using Sochi for our examples today. We're going to do a left brake because that's force of habit for everyone here. But we've got a few initials for 06. We've got the east one, which is near some rivers. We got what's that? The west one near a bridge. We're not going to be using the one in the middle of the valley just because if you're doing that one, you're going to have to do some weird stuff. And it's just easy to do east and west. Questions on that?
Yeah, so the reason why it's a right-hand brake, I believe, is for deconfliction of terrain, and you get that at different airfields. I mean, for me, I fly out of Whanuapai. It's a right-hand circuit depending on the runway you're using. It's a left-hand circuit depending on others.
Yeah, it's true. I believe for TNT we use left brakes because, well, runway 02 is there. And that makes it ever so difficult for proper stuff, especially when dealing with randoms who aren't on comms and all that fun stuff. Because it's incredibly easy for someone to mess up their brake or someone to mess up their takeoff. And if you have 2 aircraft in the same piece of sky at the same second, it's only going to be noticeable, we'll say. But yes. So we're going to tag recall relentlessly, and he's either going to say, all right, we're going to do right brakes at Sochi because I can't be bothered to make terrain up, or we're just going to suffer and do it with this.
All good.
1 sec, I've just got a question, so let me have a read of that. Alright, so for whoever's asked about the initials are a point from the runway. The entry and exit points are a way to get to that position, if that makes sense. Yeah, so if we're going to use east entry, we can fly the track which is 261. And it's going to get us more or less there. We do a turn. If we want runway 24, we'll go 003. And through the power of turns, that will get us to the required points, if that answers the question.
I have a question.
Alright.
What if I'm I'm coming from the, let's say we're landing 1-1 and I'm coming from the east. Do you get
1-1
sent? Is the only way to get in is the entry north, and then you just do the midfield and get into the break that way, or?
I guess it depends on the controller.
Okay.
They may give you vectors for the Sakumi entrance point, or they may let you do a midfield more or less civilian traffic. Just because I would imagine it's weird to do a midfield overhead coming perpendicular to the runway. However, if you would like to prove me wrong, I'm more than willing to watch it.
I mean, it is safer to come in perpendicular when you're doing an overhead, but
yeah,
when you come crossing midfield, sorry, but yeah.
I heard painting. Maybe.
That was Dub.
Oh, sorry, Adam.
What are the altitudes at CRP? Is that the same as what you were showing before, 1500?
Yeah. So it'll be at the CRP. You'd be on speed, on altitude, just working towards that initial. You can be a little bit higher if terrain. You can be a little bit lower, which is less than recommended. But as long as you are on the numbers by your initial, if that answers the question.
Yep.
Okay, sweet. All right. Any more questions?
How do we run the practical part of this?
Well, we're going to have a server in a few seconds. We're not going to stream that, but that's all right. Just because we've got my IPs and all that fun stuff in there. All right. So have we got any more questions for this lesson or not really?
I guess just to clarify, like if you're in a flight and you're the wingman, like we talked about comms for the lead, but what about comms for the wingman and the break and stuff like that?
Yep. All right. So, the only comms for the wingman would be if lead voice is pitching, you'll say pitching. If lead doesn't, you won't say anything. And then you're going to report free greens. And if tower is being weird, then you'll also need to say that you're landing. So say tripod 1-3 base 3 greens. Tower could Tower may have only said tripod 1-1. So they've only cleared one aircraft. But if they don't give a flight number, like 111213, if it's only the formation call sign, then you don't need to say anything. But if tower's landing individual aircraft at the same time, or individual aircraft separately, then you'll need to do normal comms, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. I wasn't sure if everybody should report the gear down or base 3 greens part.
Yeah. So everyone was going to report base 3 greens. And then yeah.
I have another question.
Yep.
How, from a not ATC perspective, but as a pilot perspective, does ATC only usually clears one complete flight through the initial? Like, how many flights or aircrafts can be in the actual pattern?
Yeah.
Like the sequencing part of all this. Is it normal to be told to hold maybe at one of those the compulsory reporting point, or?
Hey,
So I haven't found documentation on that, but from looking out the window at work, there's generally going to be about, I want to say a minute, but probably longer, in between individual formations at the initial.
Okay.
Hey,
So,
boys,
okay.
can I ask a quick question?
Mhm.
I got a mod that was through the Inferno for like paint jobs. Because there's some audio guys support. I don't guess you guys know where that mod's installed, do you? I looked in the mod
You're
folder.
going to have to ask in somewhere that isn't a training session.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. My bad.
no worries.
Let me go
Oh,
somewhere else.
Cheers. Further questions? Yep. Nope. No more questions for the night. All right. So we'll just go through the objectives one more time and let me know if we feel confident with it. Are we able to list the positions / paths of the overhead pattern? Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah.
Affirm.
Cool.
I think so.
If asked to, could someone explain the correct radio procedures? Yes, no, maybe? If not,
GRP
I'm all good to go
initial.
back over it.
GRP initial pitch, triggering, land, right?
Beautiful. All right. And finally, do you reckon we would be confident in demonstrating the overhead as described in this lesson?
Sure thing.
Let's try it.
All right, wonderful. All right, Ozzy, you can kill the recording. Thanks everyone for coming out. Those of you that are here are going to get a password and all that fun stuff in a second.